What is going on, everybody, and welcome back into Barley Studios. Now today in the studio we're going to start a new sculpting project. I'm super excited about this. I've been thinking about this themed project for quite a long time, and I'm really excited to be able to break into this theme and project and really just knock it out here in the studio. So here recently, Dimensional Drinks and the 3D Tumbler Lounge over on Facebook. It's a Facebook group I follow. A lot of awesome crafters on there using clay to create masterpiece tumblers and sculptures. Now what they have done is they have created a challenge. Here's this challenge. It is a light switch challenge. You know, a light switch that you use to turn on your lights in your room? Yeah, that type of light switch. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sculpting a Sculpting Original an awesome I Lava You, yes, a Disney I Lava You wall plate. Along with that, we will be using some reference photos. I will post those reference photos throughout this project video just so you get an idea of where my idea is coming from. Some of these reference photos were creations from other artists, and I plan to use this wall plate in my kind of like bathroom, which is more of a beach theme. So this is actually going to go on my physical wall, on my wall outlet, and the kids will be able to have that in the kids' bathroom. Kind of fun, right? So the second video of this project will be us painting this out of acrylics. And then the very third and the final video will be us using a Flynn Sister epoxy, two-part epoxy, to apply a very nice clear coat to this to really protect it against those little grimy hands and fingers as they use the light switch, and also avoid wear and tear on that item since it is going to be a piece of art form that is on the wall. Now, I will go ahead and go to a voiceover here in a few moments, and we'll really just get into the sculpting video, which will run about 30 to 40 minutes long. And if I can keep the painting video around that time frame, I will as well. This video is running in around 18 times speed or so. And just also remember that you can use the YouTube playback button in the settings of this video, and you can increase the speed by another 2 times if you'd like to. Just remember when you do so, you're gonna distort my audio voiceover, as well as kind of any music that I have playing in the background. I hope this is a very fun video for you. I haven't really done a whole lot of Disney products in the studio here, and again, I'm really excited to get this one done. And as you can see from the thumbnail, when you clicked on this video, this is from the Disney short, I Lava You. So let's go ahead and turn around here and get into the studio and get to sculpting and painting.
All right, you guys, let's just jump straight into this voiceover here and let's get to sculpting. Now, before we can actually start sculpting with our Sculpting Original, we're going to have to just think about the wall plates we're going to use for this light switch challenge. Now, I have a few light switches that I have bought from Lowe's here, and there are actually different price points in general. So we have the double wall plate, we have the single wall plate, and then we also have a cheap wall plate here. Now, as you can see here, these are Allen and Roth wall plates. These are metallic wall plates, so they're a lot more durable than what you would get with, say, this plastic one. Now, this plastic one probably ran about $1 or so. The single metal wall plate from Allen and Roth ran about $4 or $5, and then the dual wall plate ran about $6 or $7. So the price points do jump up quite a bit compared to the plastic brothers there. But we're going to go ahead and use a metal one. The reason for which is we're going to be able to bake our clay directly on the metal wall plate. Now, as you can see, I went ahead and drilled 2 holes here. Now, I made a mistake here, guys, and I should have drilled these more so centered in the actual wood panel. Instead, I kind of have it catty-cornered a little bit. And it made actually recording these quite difficult. If I ever do this again, guys, I think I'm going to probably make some more of these in the future. I'll probably go ahead and drill these holes into like a nice white like tile or something like that. Maybe like a matte style tile so it doesn't reflect the halo light too much, but enough to where it actually gives me a really nice white background. As you can see, this thing is super durable and it's going to last a very long time as long as I don't destroy it in the creation process. Now, the overall placement of these screws is just going to be very simplistic, and I'm not even going to put any washers or nuts on the back of the actual screws as I put them on the wooden board here, or the wooden panel as it were. So it's just going to hold itself into position by pressure of the actual wall plate. And then once I get some clay on the overall item, it'll kind of like suction itself to the actual wood around the outside edges of the wall plate. And it should adhere quite well for what we need it to do. Once it's on the actual board, we should have enough room and enough suction to where we can apply a lot of pressure to the clay, and it won't change the overall positioning of it too much. These are just going to stay in position, and they're about 2-inch long or so long screws. They're going to work out quite well. Now this wall plate again was about $6 or $7, and what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and give it a line of protection here. Now the line of protection here that we're going to use is going to be aluminum foil, and we don't even need those screws that came in the original pack for this wall plate. We just don't need them. I'll probably buy some aftermarket screws from Lowe's or Home Depot and the color that I want, and I'll probably even paint the screws before I apply them to the wall plate in the bathroom. Now here you can see I'm going to use just straight up aluminum foil, tin foil, aluminum foil, whichever you would like to call it. And we're going to go ahead and give this a layer of protection. So what this does here, it allows me to bake the item and then just easily remove the wall plate. And it guarantees that the clay that we bake is not going to adhere to the wall plate, and then I have to fight to get rid of the wall plate. If I wanted to, I could also possibly just go ahead and bake the clay onto the wall plate and just anticipate leaving that with that clay sculpture. But in this situation I was probably just going to use the wall plate that I have already in the bathroom, and this clay structure that we're going to sculpt is just going to go over the existing wall plate. I plan to use this same metal wall plate, which is a little bit more high end, a little bit more pricey, to repeatedly use it over and over again, as long as it doesn't warp too much during the baking process. So as you can see there, the X-Acto knife I was using just was not cutting it, so I just used some scissors to cut some just straight edges on to that aluminum foil, just to kind of give us a clean edge. Now you will also notice that as I apply this base layer of clay, we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of an extra hangover off of the aluminum foil. Now as you can see, I'm also applying this in different segments and sheets. If I were to be a smart guy, I would have went ahead and just rolled this out in a singular sheet and applied it to the aluminum foil, and then I would have got a really nice smooth back to the overall clay structure. You'll see later on when I get it completed, and maybe right before the painting video, that it has like a little bit of a layered background or back of the wall plate. It's not gonna give it any kind of weakness at all. It's completely fine. I'm just stating the fact that I could have made it a really smooth back to the wall plate if I had went ahead and just applied all of that clay in one fell swoop in one layer. So what we're going to do is here, we've already got the overall base of the wall plate laid out, and we're going to build on top of this just flat layer of clay here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of build up the outside edges, and I'm just using some tools here just to slowly remove striations of the clay across the upper portion of the structure here. I'm also going to ever so often come in with an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to clean up the outside edges of the clay structure. And you'll also notice later on, and I'll mention it again later, that I was going to go ahead and apply like a 3D drip element to the very bottom of the wall plate and just give it some artistic variation. But I decided to remove that later on. I'll mention it again later. So as you can see, I'm applying some striations to the top right there, just removing some clay, kind of giving it a nice wavy like texture there. And we're going to apply more texture later. We're going to use just a needle tool here, and we're going to go ahead and give the overall silhouette and kind of a sketch of the I Lava You female and male volcanoes onto the actual structure here. I'm also going to go ahead and start applying little worms of clay. Now these are just little rolled out segments that have just been really nice and conditioned so that they're really easy and malleable to work with. And I'm going to go ahead and begin by sculpting the actual arms of the volcano. So this is technically like where the shoulder goes into the arm, and then it comes down and around. And it's almost as if the two volcanoes are holding hands. I'm going to go ahead and post the very first reference photo in the upper left hand corner. So here is that. And as you can see, the arms just kind of come down away from the shoulders, and they can kind of come down to a center point in front of them. And it's almost as if the two volcanoes in the I Lava You animation are holding hands at the very end. And it's just because they're in love and they love each other, and they have that embrace. I really think that I'm going to come out and later on and make another form of art with them, maybe a painting or something. That'd be kind of fun. And then maybe I'll incorporate some just fun little geek things in that painting. So as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and build out the right hand side of her body there, and we're going to kind of just make that in kind of like a wavy fashion, and we're just kind of imitate the overall structure of a cliff like face. So it doesn't have to be super specific, but it just needs to have a lot of variation in levels. That way it looks like it's a mountainous terrain, and it's coming out and away from the volcano there. It makes it look like she has a little bit of a dress, as it were, coming down and off the body of the volcano. When we come in to paint that, it'll be a lot of sap greens, a little bit of hooker green, as well as some browns to give it a really nice cliff effect. So as you can see, we're going to start to apply a little bit of base coat for the faces here. Now I'm just rolling out little segments of clay and then cutting them into general shape, kind of like puzzle pieces. We're just going to mush that in before we actually begin to apply any remote detail. So this is just what you would call the blocking in stages of particular items on the actual face of the sculpture here. So we're going to go ahead and just take our time. We're going to remove a little bit of clay, just give it some just initial striations. These are not details, these are just striations, just to give it a little bit of texture. And every time we come back to this later on in the process, we're going to apply more texture to them. It's just really easy and just fun to go ahead and apply a little bit of that there now, so we can kind of get an idea of what it would look like. Now just remember that this technically right here is the actual smoke that is coming out of the tops of the volcanoes, and that is also supposed to be blending together. But there also needs to be a separation in the volcano ash that is coming out of the top. So you need to see the females on the right hand side and you see the males on the left hand side, and when it's all painted together it'll kind of blend a little bit, but you still need to see that separation so that you can just really see that they're both smoking individually in their own way. We're applying the actual face of the female lava volcano here, and we're going to go ahead and just kind of trim this in here. Now, I'll often come back to this later on in the process, so we're going to go ahead and just block the overall shape in here, and then I'll come back after I finish the male side of it, get the overall thickness that I want on his face and his body, and I'll come back to the female later on. Applying a little bit of her hair there, just enough to where it kind of comes down and away from the body, like the upper portions of her head. And I do really come back later on and I add a little bit more of this and kind of detail it out. So we're just applying clay here and there, just trying to get the overall shape of like the very top of the crown of her head, where the actual volcanic ash is coming out. That needs to have a very kind of rock-like texture, and then the actual hair that's supposed to be coming down her is supposed to be like the black volcanic lava that's already been hardened into like a black volcanic form. And it's supposed to be kind of like already having a nice little bit of a striation effect. Here's a little bit of a picture of what that kind of would look like. I don't go crazy with the overall ornateness of the actual hair, but I do apply a little bit of striations in that so that we can apply some overall washes of paint later on in the processes here. Building out that little kind of heel that comes off and away from her body there, as well as the kind of her breast there. Obviously she doesn't have like breasts in the image, but she does have a little bit of a defined chest where this very lush green heel is coming down and away from her chin in her chest area down towards where like the bay would be, where their arms are meeting. So the arms meeting in the very bottom middle would be where the natural water or formation of the volcanoes would create just a nice like gulf or a bay effect around the volcanoes there. And then here towards the very bottom of it, you can see that we actually have a beach and a little bit of a water formation for the ocean. And we'll come back to that way later in the processes here. But as you can see, I'm going to go ahead and just build up the overall formation of the male volcano now. I'm just kind of go ahead and add striations to the heel on her side, as well as we're going to really kind of lock in and give a lot of detail and refinement to his beard. So the front part of his body is not supposed to be smooth and lush and green like hers is. It's supposed to be actually very rocky and very jagged. And we're going to go ahead and apply a lot of downward cracks and striations in the clay, and we're going to really just kind of break it apart as we work through this process so that we can get the overall formation of his beard. So he is the male, he does have a beard, and you also notice that he's a little bit more stubby, a little bit shorter, and he has a much wider, broader base, whereas she's kind of tall, slender, has the ornate like dress part coming down, and it's just supposed to give them the overall formation of the male and female, whilst keeping everything very organic, rock, and lush and green. using the edge of a curved sculpting tool there, and I'm being very rough with the edge of that, really like pushing the clay away from each other, creating a lot of jagged rock formations here. And this will be an ongoing process throughout this, is I need to make sure that I can kind of apply as many jagged rock like kind of cliffs and changes in variation of rock depth, so that way I can get the washes in there and really get the overall sculpting that the images that we're using as reference. Here's the reference again in the upper left hand corner. We'll put it in the left hand corner here, that it needs. So it needs to have a lot of depth in the overall shape of the rock formations on both of them, and as you can see, that's why we're kind of pushing it where we need to. I need to take a little bit of clay away from the bottom portions of his beard, because I need it to really look like the beard or his body is going behind his arm, where it comes down and away from the shoulder on the left hand side, down and around, and then it meets her hand in the middle. I need it to really kind of look like that beard formation is going behind that rock formation where his arm is swooping down and around. So I need to remove a little bit of that clay, that way it just simulates that it's going behind the arms there. Still really changing the overall variation of some of those crags in the rock, making sure that we're able to see those, but at the same time we just want them to be nice and uniform in some ways. We want it to feel like it's one piece, where it's not like just completely different rock formations. I'm adding a little bit of striations here, just kind of smoothing it out a little bit, just trying to get some of this texture into the sky, so that way I can just get really happy with how it looks, and that way eventually here soon we'll work on some clouds as we work our way through the process. Working on just kind of intensifying the void between their heads there, as well as we're going to start working on the just building up the face around the male volcano here. You'll start to see I'll start to add little itty bitty dots of clay here, building that up before I sculpt in the eyes. Now, I do believe that I did pretty good on the eyes and the mouths of both of the volcanoes here, but you tell me in the comments. I know it's kind of really hard to refine some of these sculptures that you've never sculpted before, and definitely this is something new for me, but I really found it very entertaining and very enjoyable to sculpt some of these body parts for both volcanoes, and I think I was able to capture their overall likeness quite well in the time that I had. This is again a challenge that we are doing for Dimensional Drinks and the 3D Tumbler Lounge. They also have a tumbler challenge as well, but due to time restraints and customer commissions, I just do not have time to enter both of them. The other one that they're doing is a rainbow themed tumbler build, and I barely have enough time to finish this one and get it submitted before the deadline of June 30th of 2024. So it is, as of right now, the 20th of June, and hopefully I'll be able to have enough time to paint this bad boy out to perfection, get it epoxied, and get it ready to be showcased. Gonna go ahead and just apply little micro scratches and details to his face. This is quite a bit of a process, and it's also just it takes time, you guys. There's no way other way of saying it except it takes time. The Sculpting Original is very malleable. It's very easy to see, even late at night when I'm super tired, but I want to get a little bit of sculpting done. So it's really easy to work with, and it's this little sculpting tool here. I don't remember the name of this one, but it's something that a lot of dentists use to scrape your teeth. It is really easy to use and push this very soft clay around. I feel like I don't see enough Sculpting Original projects here on YouTube. I know there's a lot out there, but sometimes I just don't feel like I see them very often. There's so many people using Sculpey like Souffle and Sculpey 3, as well as like Cos clay and a few of other foam clays, things like that. And people just go after like the very rare and intricate, more high levels of clay. And sometimes when you're sculpting something just this simplistic, it's just really fun just to go basic with it. And I really do think that I hope that a lot of these sculpting videos that I create here are not just enjoyable to watch in the background while you're like doing something in the kitchen, or maybe like late at night when you're getting ready for bed. You can listen to some relaxing music and let me serenade you to bed or to sleep while I'm working on some crafts here. But it also allows people to learn. So children who are wanting to get into sculpting and want to learn how to really get into sculpting and just learn to create are able to literally go to Walmart and buy a $4 or $5 pack of clay and just start to just imagine and create. Oftentimes I'll be working in the studio, even at this time when I'm working on the male of the Volcano here. My children are behind me at their kids crafting table, and they are actually building their own sculpted items. And they'll often come up to me and they'll say, "Dad, can you bake this?" And I'll say, "Of course I can." What are you gonna do with it? Well, are you gonna paint it? Or are you gonna kind of leave it on your bedside table? Or are you gonna add something to it? And then of course I often, a lot of the times, tell them that they need to refine their processes and try again. But all it does is it forces them to create. And creating is the most important thing for children, I believe. And I really do hope people enjoy these videos to some extent. They're able to really just see themselves maybe saying, "Hey, I think I could create that," or something similar. Maybe I'll inspire you to create something of your very own. I just find it very enjoyable, and if I inspire you to create something out of clay or paint, or make something out of epoxy tumblers, or even just my canvas paintings, which I'm trying to do more of, if I inspire you guys, please let me know. And if there's something specific y'all would like to see coming out of my studio, whether here on YouTube or on my Etsy shop, just let me know. I'm always looking for new commissions, and I look forward to growing just as well as you do here by watching me on YouTube. Kind of refining the edge of her face there, where her hair is going to kind of come down around the left-hand side of her face and then go into the body. Adding a little bit more hair there as it comes down and around. There's supposed to be an overall total of 3 of those. Here is that reference photo on the left-hand side again. You can see there's 3 willy-dillies of hair coming down, little worms of hair. I'm going to go ahead and refine that just a little bit. It's supposed to be like a nice little fade effect. But once I get it actually painted out with details, you'll actually see the hair formations in a much more broad way. It's going to be almost black or pitch black hair that's coming down off the top of the volcano. And that's supposed to be already cooled off clay. Not cooled off clay, cooled off lava, as it were. Adding a little bit more to the body on her right-hand side there, just really just defining her a little bit. We're going to add a little bit more clay to the actual cloud of volcanic ash or smoke that's coming up and out of their bodies there. And what we're all going to do is we're going to go ahead and add these refinements here, and then we're going to go ahead and work on where the actual smoke or ash is coming out of the top of the volcano. We want to make sure that the rock formation looks like that is recessed a little bit, so that way that clay that's coming out of the tops of the heads really looks like it's coming out of something and not just on top of something, if that makes any sense. We're also going to use a ball stylus tool to give it a really kind of like varied level of texture here. So we're going to really push that into some of these pieces of clay that I've added in. But before I can do that, I kind of need to blend in those higher edges that I've added, so that way it just looks like it's a nice smooth layer of smoke that's coming up off the body. Now you will see me use a multitude of tools here just to kind of get the overall general shape of the smoke that I'd like. And I'm really just trying to add a little bit of like diversity and variation to the levels of the ash and volcanic smoke. I just don't want them to look all the same, really nice smooth texture. I want to apply a little bit of swooping motion with a ball stylus, as well as this is like a concave tool that I have. And it's just going to add a lot of variation to it. Here's that little itty bitty ball stylus before I go into a larger one. Just applying little striations here, a little bit of pushed in texture here and there sporadically. A little bit of size up in the ball stylus there, and that's where I'm trying to add a little bit more variation in those higher levels of the smoke that I had added on. Now some of that volcanic ash will be like more of a gray and a black tinge, and then we'll have some orange and reds peeking through there. I'm not going to go super intense with that, like super realistic. I want it to be like just a nice, fun, crafted item to go into the bathroom. So we'll kind of keep the color combination just very fun and just very laid back as we apply that paint. Using a wire tool there, we're going to remove a little bit of clay. This is where we're going to start to remove and just start to isolate where the clay is going to come down into the top of the head, into, not just on top of. So we want to make sure that that rock formation has just a opening at the very top. Continuously removing the clay there with the clay removal tool there, little wire tool, and we're going to go ahead and get some definition around the smoke there. It's supposed to come out of the head, not like cascading over the left hand side. And we're just going to go ahead and just clean him up a little bit. I really felt like when I cleaned him up that she would be easier. So I went ahead and just applied a lot of detail to him, kind of locked in his overall shape and structure before I moved on to her. Using that little silicone tip tool there, just go ahead and refine some of the edges there. And then we'll remove a little bit of clay here just so that we can kind of refine his top portions of his head there. Once we get done with that, we're going to go ahead and go back over to the dental tool here, and this is where I apply a little bit more striations in the rock, little jagged edges here and there. And it's more so about pushing the clay. I may have mentioned that before, you guys, but it's more so about pushing the clay and just letting the details of that tool sit in the clay. Applying a little more meat to the left-hand side of his body. I'm just trying to create a little bit more isolation between the sky and the background and his body there. Kind of smoothing that out a little bit there, and then we can move on to the next stage here. So what I'll start doing here is I'll start to refine her face and her hair a little bit in just a second there, as well as working on the arms of both bodies there. So right now, in a lot of reference photos, a lot of the arms here are kind of just like hidden away in whether it's behind another piece of art or there's supposed to be some whales that come out in some images. I really didn't know which way the overall rock texture was supposed to go, so I just kind of winged it in some ways, and I just felt like I applied some striations to it so that I just was happy with it. But I just didn't want it to be super smooth and super plain, so I wanted there to be some kind of texture there in some ways. Using that overall dental tool again, we're going to go ahead and push some clay into and just move it around the top ridges of these arms here, both his and hers. And what we're doing is we just don't want it to be smooth. That would be like where the top ridges of those rock formations would be exposed to weather and elements, and it may be like super duper like jagged and rocky, and there will be less vegetation there. So we want to make sure that when we paint that later, it has that jagged texture that we need. And then as it comes down the slopes of those rocks, then you get into shade and shadow, and has a little bit more water, a little bit more water held into those valleys, and it could possibly hold more vegetation. It gets more lush and green. I'm going to go ahead and smooth out her hair a little bit here, and this is an ongoing thing where I work and tinker with her hair. So throughout the whole process, I'm continuously working on that. More so now, what I'm doing is I'm also just working to get the formations of her hair in the correct direction, right? So I'll apply a little bit of detail here and there just so I can kind of get a feel of how I want to do that. What I'm doing now is I'm just trying to see like the top portion right there. I'm trying to get the overall shape of those hair like clumps to be in the correct location, in the correct direction. Just applying little details here until I get just truly happy with the actual direction of the hair. Working on her face right there a little bit, and I'll start to refine some of the face features here now. Now I'm going to start working on her eyes, and her mouth here, you guys. Now she does not have a nose, but she has a very smoothed out face here, and her forehead is supposed to have a lot of texture. Here's an image of that in the upper left hand corner there of what her face is supposed to look like. And as you can see here, it is a lot of work just to kind of get the levels of detail in the eyes and the mouth whilst not removing or pushing clay in the wrong directions. And I'm trying to do it to where it kind of reduces the amount of work that I have to do when I come in to paint these. And I really want to give my washes somewhere to settle into. But you have to have them the overall right direction, the right aspect ratio, so that way they just look proper. And it took some refinement to get these facial features to be correct. So just go ahead and sit back, you guys, and we'll catch you here back in a few minutes when we start to move on to some other portions. But right now I'm just working on refining those faces, as well as a little lip that goes under her lower lip. That didn't last long, so I got some of the facer features kind of locked in here, and I do push them around here a little bit again, just to kind of like see if I can build up some of the ridges to where they're easier to see a little bit, kind of like his eyes are a little puffy there with the clay. And I was going to see if I could get hers to look kind of just more defined. I'm using an X-Acto knife here. It's a lot more like brutal on the clay, and it does leave a lot of like very narrow striations in it, but it's also a very good way to apply really quick details to like the hair follicles. So I'll go back and forth, but I'll use that to apply a lot of detail to those hairs, clumps that are coming down the female's chest, as well as the back of her volcano part. So the back portion of her dress and her arm and her shoulder, that's supposed to also be hair as well. You can go ahead and apply a little bit more texture there, and I'll blend that in and then just apply some striations to it to make it simulate like it's hair. As you can see, it's really starting to come along now, you guys. And it does take time, but it is worth every minute that I invest into this, and it's just a really relaxing process. Now, the overall light source did change a little bit. I don't know if it was just because I didn't have my top light on in the studio here, or if it's my halo light was too high. I don't remember, but it does get a little bit more caramelized as far as the video content here. But you can really actually see a lot of the details a little bit better when it has this type of lighting source, instead of just the halo light being really close to the subject matter. The clay can at times really just bleach out the camera, so it's just kind of fun just to be able to see it in a different light or color saturation. Again, working on that face there until I can get just happy with how it looks, and it definitely just takes some time here. We're going to go ahead and apply a little bit of clouds here. Now these start off as just little clumps of clay here, and we're just going to go ahead and blend those in and just apply with a ball stylus tool some different overall textures on those. And these will just be nice, like caramelized titanium white, like colors against the nice blue white, and maybe a little bit of yellow tinged sky background. In a lot of the images, for reference, you'll see that the sky has a lot of clouds in it. I just didn't feel like going that crazy with clouds and having like 1,000 like striations of clouds across the whole upper portion of the sculpted item. I just decided to kind of keep it nice and simple, and just we're gonna have like a nice blue background behind the volcanoes, and then we'll have the actual nice like titanium white or off-white like clouds in the background. It's just gonna be nice, subtle, and it's gonna be very nice. Now we're going to start working on the actual base of the sculpture here. Now, I went through a few different changes of what I wanted to do with this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to finish building out the overall structure of the bottom of the volcano, and then we're going to add a few little worms of clay across the whole bottom of the volcano, and I'm going to push these upwards so that it looks like they are waves. So I'm gonna like kind of refine these in an upward fashion, and then I'll kind of just really push them in like a wave-ish fashion, like up and then over, up and over, and that's gonna give us a simulation of waves from the ocean that's behind this little beach section. Now originally I was gonna kind of keep that very flat, and I was just gonna paint that texture in, but I really like the overall texture of like the waves right there between the beach and the rock formations. I thought it was really cool. So we're going to go ahead and refine that just a little bit there before we even start to work on the beach again at all. Now, as you can see also here, I have that left-hand lower portion. I was really going to bring that clay down in like a dripped fashion, just to kind of create like an abstract look to it. And then here in a few moments, I just decided I just did not like that. I just felt like keeping it very nice and simple and holding it a little bit tighter to the reference photos that I was using throughout the process. So we'll go ahead and kind of tinker with the beach, bring out the edge of the beach just a little bit further. Then we'll cut that off. And what I was thinking about doing is I was going to like remove some clay here and just like a nice cool little pattern fashion. And it was going to simulate like waves coming up the beach. And I thought it was really cool, and it kind of stayed for a little while as I work on some other things. And then eventually I'm just like, I'm just not feeling it. I don't know how I feel about that. So eventually I just kind of wipe that clean and just smooth out the beach a little bit and just apply little subtle areas where the water comes up the beach. Now there is one portion right here on the left hand side, and I'm going to create a really strong wave right there. And that's how it is in a lot of the reference photos, and this specifically the one I'm really following for the beach or the water portion. So we're going to bring that up and then across here in a very strong wave, and then I'll kind of bring the striations down and away from the wave in a different direction, and it just really creates a cool effect there. And then the striations of the water will follow in kind of like a diagonal fashion until they reach the edge of the beach there, where it's going to have some little ripples of water there. And then we'll do like an ombre painting effect. Here what I'm doing is I'm rolling out the whale. So in a lot of reference photos, it's the males looking down at the whales, like splashing in the water. And we're gonna apply that whale to this sculpture here. Now it means I also have to be very careful about it when I'm working with it as far as baking it, as well as cutting the holes for the wall plate of the switches, and then painting it later. We're also going to apply a second whale here. So you can see there's two whales that will be coming out of this wave of water. They will have fins as well, so hang tight. We're going to get those on there as well. But one of them will be a glue-in later type of fin, because the whale fin on the front of the whale needs to be kind of sculpted in so that has a blended edge of a fin. But the one in the back does not, so we'll just attach it later with some adhesive in like a little slot that I'll like carve behind the whale for it to sit into. So I don't want to have anything on there that I can possibly destroy in any other crafting processes of this item. So we'll just apply the one fin and then we'll be good to go. It took me a few minutes to get this kind of the second whale coming up out of the wave, the right shape there, because this would be nice and subtle. But it's going to look good once it's all painted out. The whale, as well as those waves and then the edge of the beach, are really going to look good when it's all said and done. Applying a little bit more texture there, just kind of lock in some of the like little froth that's coming up off the whales there, and over the edge of the tail, as well as the top portions of those waves. And then I'm of course going to add a little striation that comes down to the side of the whale, and that's going to be where it's the blue to light blue tone of the whale's belly. Here's where I decided to go ahead and just wipe this out and wipe it clean. And I started tinkering with it for a minute, and I was just like, nah, this ain't cutting it. So I extended the beach out a little bit, and then I just apply a little bit more of a linear removed texture to it. And I just thought that it looked better overall. Just more so subtle, more smooth like a beach. Now I apply a little bit of striational details to the beach, but not a whole lot. So we're going to do more so that with painting, kind of give it a nice sandy beach color. Give it a little bit of brown wash to give it some warmth, and then we'll kind of go from there. There I am removing that lower portion of that abstract section that it just felt too far out of place, and I felt like it was just nah. So there's those little striations of the water coming up the edge of the beach. And then what we'll do is we'll apply some just small striations to the beach before we start to work on any other accessories to the beach. Now originally I was thinking about keeping the beach just completely smooth and completely fresh of all things, and it was just I felt like it was gonna just draw the eye from the volcanoes in the background. And then I just got to thinking, you know what, like some of the reference photos have like like some turtles on there, or I was even thinking about putting like Moana's necklace like in the sand, something like that. And I still might do that later, but I didn't sculpt it in this session. So I do decide to go ahead and put some turtles into this sculpted item. Now these actually turned out a lot easier to sculpt than I had thought, and I've never really sculpted not whales. Yeah, I've never sculpted whales, but I've also never sculpted sea turtles at all in the past. And my thought with this is that it's actually going to be Crush and his wife before they had Squirt. So isn't that really kind of fun to think about? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You tell me in the comments. I like to imagine that these two items are Crush and his loving wife. I was gonna say lover, but their loving wife, because this I Love You is all about the love of a soulmate. Just meant to be. So there you can see I just started with a large piece of clay there, and I kind of just like just pushed the clay into a head formation there, and we're going to apply a little bit of just skin texture in an upward fashion with the sculpting tool there, and then what we'll do is we'll kind of refine the body. I felt like it needed to come out a little bit further than that, so we'll push that out a little bit further, and then what we'll do is we will apply some fins to this thing. Now this is going to be the female. The male will be slightly larger, not too big at all, but just enough to where it looks good. And then there are the two front forward-facing fins. They are both in a backwards rear fashion, and there's a reason for that. So we'll show you in just a minute. Applying a little bit of texture there, and then I'll texture the overall fins in a few moments, as well as the turtle shells and the faces. So there's the little striations there on the edges of the fins there. It's supposed to be nice and subtle. Not too big, not too small, just right like Goldilocks. Looking good, looking good. Applying a little bit of refinement to the overall top of the head there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and sculpt in the face. Now, of course, turtles are supposed to have a small beak-like nose. So we'll go ahead and use the sculpting tool in the right direction, and we'll give it that beaked nose. And it's supposed to be nice and subtle, and it's supposed to look like the turtle is smiling. Very happy, happy, lovey, lovey. Alright, so now we're going to work on the larger turtle here. Now this time I did not make the same mistake. I made it slightly larger, so that way I had a little bit more turtle shell on the back portion of the turtle. As remember, also these are kind of supposed to be in the forward-facing image of this sculpture, so they are closer to you. So that means that they would be covering the waves and the rock formations behind you. So although we are creating a little bit of a 3D effect by sculpting them, they are flat in some ways, because the overall rear image is also flat. I'm going to go ahead and remove a little bit of that clay around the neck. I had a little bit too much there. We're just going to go ahead and define that head a little bit. As you can see, the head is substantially larger, but it's going to look really good because this is supposed to be the male. I'm going to make a little bit of an eye. That eye is supposed to be more noticeable. Sculpt that in a little bit there. As you can see with this little tool here, we're also applying some striations and some wrinkles to the neck there very easily. And go ahead and apply some striations to the overall underbelly where the shell is. And then we're also going to give this turtle some fins as well. Now these fins will be in also the rear facing formation, but we will sculpt those into the edge of the body there. And they will be facing backwards. Now these fins on the forward facing, whether it's the left on the turtle or the right on the big turtle, are that way for a reason, because we're going to go ahead and sculpt in a fin that the two turtles are hugging with their rear forward facing fins. So these two fins are going up and over the heads, and they're holding each other in an embrace. Similar to how the two volcanoes are doing, these two turtles are also in a loving embrace, and it's just supposed to be nice and very, very cool. The smiles on them are very nice, and then the two volcanoes, as your eyes follow upward, are in beautiful lava love. I'm going to keep the striations and the texture of the turtle shells very simple. We're just going to go ahead and sculpt that in with an X-Acto knife, and we'll let the washes later on in the process take care of the rest of that. Looking pretty good, you guys. What do you think? We're going to apply some last details, and then we are rocking and rolling into final shots.
Alright, you guys, so that is the first portion of this video where we're sculpting this amazing I Lava You wall plate. Now, of course, we don't have the cutout inserts in this yet, as well as any of the actual screw attachments to attach it to the metal wall plate for the wall itself. So I'll go ahead and use a router in this separate video. This is going to be more of a tips and tricks video, so if anybody wanted to make their own wall plate, then they could do so. I will link that in this little playlist of I Lava You wall art. So it'll be in its own little playlist here on my YouTube channel, and I will link that here in this drop down menu here. As you can see here, this is a time lapse of me sculpting the overall turtles at the very bottom, which is probably the funnest part of the entire project, and I like to believe that this is Crush, the turtle, and his wife. Don't know where his wife is in all the Nemo movies, but this is what I want to believe. I really do hope you guys enjoyed this portion of the video, which was the sculpting out of Sculpting Original. We will go ahead and go into the next video of this playlist, which will be us detail painting this to perfection out of Winsor & Newton and Folk Art craft paints. So sit back and enjoy as we get into that video. Here you can see I will link that video in the playlist to the next portion of this project. I'll catch you guys on the next awesome video. Peace. On a side note, isn't it interesting that Tafiti from Moana is a volcano when she's angry, and then a luscious, kind of a lush green island when she's happy? What if the two volcanoes from I Lava You had a love child and it was Tafiti? Never know. Now it's stuck in your head.